Hi guys, putting here with a new and interesting video for you. Now, I get home from work and I hop on and Sneaky has been all over messaging me all day long about a recent news update from the World of Warships development blog. Now, I will put a link to the dev blog in the description down below, or I may just pin it in the comments, but there will be a link to the dev blog below. Now, before we get into the big news of submarines, I would just like everybody to be aware that they are also adding some other ships into the game. Battleship Vanguard, the West Virginia, the Charleston, the Wichita, Dreadnought are being put out for testing now. Usually if you see me in chat and I say I can't tell you anything because of NDA, go check out the dev blog. This is where you can find out all the lovely information about the ship, all the stats that they're releasing for everybody to be aware of so they can kind of know what's going on is given out in the dev blog. Now, these are all just so everybody understands, like, the base stats without crew and without modifiers such as like camouflage, flags, upgrades. These are all just the base plane stats when you first get the ship. That is why none of us are allowed to talk about any of these, because obviously we do things to change stuff. But at least you can come here, figure stuff out. But the big news is submarines are being added. Well, right now they are just being added to the Halloween event. Wargaming did a little video showing you this. I'm not going to hit play so you guys can see it, but they are saying that World of Warships is a game about naval battles in the World War I and World War II settings. I do believe one of the devs did say some of these ships go up to the 1950s, because at the end of World War II, there was a big threat of going to war with Russia right away. If anybody's seen Patton was a big, not opponent, but he was all for it. He was like, you know, we're already here, why wait, let's just get it on. Submarines play a special role there, while being a unique type of naval combat unit with their own set of tasks and missions. In real life, submarines rarely participated in actual combat, mostly resorting to attacks on supply convoys that were particularly vulnerable to underwater assault, no thanks to their limited defenses. It means that to organically include these ships into our existing battle word can't pronounce is quite a conundrum. What they were saying is, if you are unaware or don't know, while there were active naval ships sunk, like for example the Indianapolis, a combat vessel that was sunk by submarine, most combat vessels were not sunk by submarines. Most vessels that got sunk by submarines were convoy ships, supply ships, just things moving supplies that didn't really have a lot of ways to protect themselves, which is why you have destroyer and cruiser escorts for convoys, was to protect them from the submarines. The other thing is, I do believe most submarines sank their ships with their deck cannon, not their torpedoes. Their torpedoes were mainly used against the combat vessels that were actively trying to get them. Just a little bit of the history that I do know, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I am wrong. That being said, our players really wanted Hunters of the Depths to make an appearance in the game sooner or later, and we ourselves understood that subs are so significant that we can't forgo them and had to implement them. Pretty much with subs and carriers changed naval warfare forever. Now, as you can see here, here's a screenshot of them. This is all work in progress. None of this stuff is finalized. It's all a work in progress, but this is from the Halloween event, the upcoming Halloween event. I believe this is where they're going to get most of their feedback is from the Halloween event. Now, the submarines could just be partaking in only the Halloween event, and we may never see them hit the core game. But you should be well aware that they are really considering this, and if they're introducing it in the Halloween event, you can see some of the things from the Halloween event do make its way over into the live random battle game. Every class has its own distinct gameplay. Subs are no different in this aspect, and they receive a few dimensions of movement, i.e. that they can go underwater. Players will be able to freely move between 3 submersion levels: surface, periscope, and completely submerged. Each of these levels will affect speed, concealment, and attack options of the submarines. They won't just be able to submerge and look at the underwater scenery, but use it as a tactical advantage. You can attack an opponent using the forward mounted tube launchers, and then if they're going past said opponent under the surface, use the rear launchers for added effect. What it sounds like is you can shoot a couple torps through the front, go underneath them, and shoot a couple torps from the rear end. Torpedoes will be the main weaponry for subs. Players will be able to launch each projectile independently. So kind of like with British cruisers, you're going to have, I believe, the widespread option and then a single tube option. One of the main parameters that players will have to keep in mind is oxygen. So pretty much you're not going to be able to stay underwater forever. Just like in real life, the subs needed to come up for several reasons. They came up to sorry about that. They came up to get oxygen, but usually it was to run the diesel engines to recharge the batteries, and most of the subs, at least for the World War II, World War I area, ran underwater off of battery power because there's really nowhere to put the exhaust from the diesel engines except for into the ship, and well, that would just be all sorts of bad. Depth charges are going to be the main weapon against subs. They are dropped from ships and detonate, reaching the submarine either at a particular depth or after some time. Significant area of effect damage makes them particularly dangerous, and being in that area can be very bad for the submarine. Not sure how that's going to work, and I'm not sure if all ships or just destroyers are going to be getting those, or if it's going to be destroyers and cruisers only. We're aiming at a full spectrum of emotions from our for you to experience while playing the new class. Excitement before you deadly launch from a good position and potentially sinks an enemy. Fear your opponent. Your surface ship is akin to a glass cannon and cannot withstand a massive salvo, and depth bombs or depth charges may reach you way under the surface. Satisfaction from perfectly executing an attack after which you figuratively dissolve into the deep dark waters never to be found. We do need to run extensive tests before implementing a new class, as well as collect detailed feedback and performing some significant adaptation and fine-tuning. That's why you haven't found any subs in random battles at first. However, you will be able to try them out in the new Halloween mode, where the format allows us to do some testing and experiment freely without affecting the main game modes. You'll be able to try out several steampunk-inspired submarines in the new scenario, fighting against the forces of evil and setting the world free from them once and for all, should you be successful. And this is what I mean. I think they're just using the Halloween event as a big test. It does sound like they are going to introduce them into the live or random battles, but there's no date for that, or if they even are, if it's going to be too much of a hassle. And I can't wait for all assault, especially considering all the bitching everyone does when there's a carrier in the game. The new operation will have 3 stages. Each stage will be harder than the previous one. During the first stage, you will face big, sluggish ships. After that, you will deal with cruisers. And your final task is to sink Rasputin, but destroyers, your main enemy, will get in the way of your work. So they're kind of giving us a hint on how the Halloween event is going to play out. The main goal of this event is to test the interaction between submarines and the ships, the level of attack's comfort, and some other important details. Of course, during this operation, bots will fire the submarines, otherwise it won't be a challenge to battle against inactive targets. Moreover, that will allow players to feel like a real warrior, but in simplified conditions. I hope they do not make this way too easy. I would like an actual challenge. It's worth paying special attention to catapults and ballistas. The catapults are familiar to our players due to the first Halloween operation. They attack using fireballs that can hit submarines if they are on the surface. The ballistas will have similar mechanics, but reaching the water, they will launch depth charges. It sounds like submarines is going to be the only option for this scenario or for the Halloween event. Submarines will be of several types, from small and maneuverable ones, but ones with low firepower, to big sluggish ones with high gunpowder. During the Halloween event, you can participate using the submarines with secondary armament. I'm not sure how any of these mechanics are going to work, and if I did, I would not be able to tell you, and I haven't touched these things at all. This is the first I've heard of submarines, to be honest with you. It would also be important to mention 2 different types of torpedoes. The first one is standard type with relatively high velocity, which is pretty common for destroyers. The second type is a freezing one with lower velocity and damage potential, but hitting the ships with these torpedoes are able to put of action all of our systems. Probably a typo. By hitting these torpedoes, you are able to put out of action all of our systems for a certain period of time. Pretty much, if you hit a ship, it sounds like you're just, it's gonna be, it can't do anything. We will be happy to see you in the upcoming Halloween event, where you can test our new class submarines full speed ahead. Now, if you do want to see some gameplay, like I said, here is the video. I will try to get you a link for that also. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that they're kind of showcasing the Halloween event a little bit earlier than normal, and letting us know what ships are going to be in it. And on that note, guys, I hope you guys really did like this video. Go out there, check out the dev blog, check out the video Wargaming did. I'm sure this is live on their YouTube channel. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and have yourselves one heck of a great day.